Hello, my friends. This is Lada from AstroladaOfficial, and I'm here with astrologer and anthroposophist, TEO. Hello, TEO.
Hello, Lada.
I'm very excited to hear the continuation of this interview that we had about the spiritual influences of foods. We started that. This is part two. We covered, which foods did we cover? The legumes, uh, what did
Onions,
we
onions and alliums,
onions and alliums,
the
beans, milk,
nuts and seeds.
dairy, or no, nuts and seeds.
No, dairy we're gonna start with now.
Yes, so we'll continue. I'll link below in the comments the first video if you haven't seen it, because we covered quite a lot of different foods. This is according to spiritual science, or also known as anthroposophy, given to us by the high initiate Rudolf Steiner. I'm very excited to hear your ideas and your knowledge on the rest of the food groups. Again, if anyone wants to contact Theo, I'll put a link below. He is a spiritual advisor. He's an astrologer as well. He has incredible skill to see through the issues, to help you through them as well, to help you work through them. Or if you want to study anthroposophy, the foundations of spiritual science, Theo has lectures on that, which are 30% discounted now for any viewer of Astrolada. I'll put a link below for his foundational course on spiritual science.
Thank you, Lada. So I just want to stress, because I've read some of the comments on the video, that those are just subtle explanations of some foods, and there is no restrictions of eating any food, because anyone walking on the spiritual path has a personal path, and they can choose whatever they want, or they can, or are ready to withhold from eating. So these are just some notes on how they influence our physical body and our astral body as well, and etheric. So guys, this is not a no-no on any foods. This is just what happens when you consume it. And of course, it really depends on how you prepare it, where you buy it from, is it organic, and etc. and etc. So it's just a small story of a bigger picture here. And last time we finished on grounding ourselves and walking barefoot. And I will share now my screen. It's just to have a little picture on how it works. And of course, because I don't do it very often, I need more time. Can you tell me, Lada?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we finished with the grounding last time, when we were live next to each other. Now more of a distant way. So air is a key part, of course, for our breathing, and it's part of our diet as well. It's one of the things that we constantly do. We breathe air and we exhale carbon dioxide. And breathing air in a clear environment helps for mitigating iron levels and vitamin D, and opening your cells and everything that's related to our body health. And the air and oxygen element as a chemical element is related to the astral body. So when we are in an environment when there is many vehicles and gas exudates which are dirty, where you have pollution, you're actually within the realm of a darker and dirtier astral substance, let's call it like that. Because the air makes contact with different compounds, and it just darkens. There's a smog. When you look at a city from a mountain view, there's this dark cloud that when you're within it, you don't even know that you are there. And you're gaining from the astral forces of, let's say, darker beings, which are near you. There, you are actually breathing them in. You're becoming part, you're sharing your life with them. That's why it's good to have the opportunity of at the weekend or any day of the week, just to go to a nature, clear out of these compounds. And when you go in a mountain or on the seaside or near a stream or in a forest, the clearance of the astral realm there is pure, and you are starting to contact beings which are of different kind, let's say a lighter beings. So that's part why they say it's good to go in nature, in contact with nature, because there's a natural processes that happen there which we have isolated ourselves from. So and
I can
also
tell you something. My uncle is a breatharian. I mean, he eats, but he can go, he does every year 40 days without any food. And he says the only way he can do it is if he's in the mountains. And he says when he's in the city, there is no way you can fast. Actually, people feel like eating a lot more when they're in the city, those lower astral energies, as you described. But if you want to do a fast, go somewhere in the mountain, and there it's much, much easier.
yeah, because when you breathe, it's like you're eating. It's a very pure substance that you're inhaling, and also the water. But we mentioned the water last time. So Rudolf Steiner mentioned that in the future, people will not need the plant's possibility for exhaling oxygen. In the future, we will be able to take whatever we need from the air. We will withhold carbon substances. We will not exhale them. We'll be able to purify the air from our physical body and our etheric forces. And this is why I think Bean Saduno gives exercises for withholding the breath. It's actually when we're withholding the breath, we are chewing and recycling and working on the air that's within us. It's like holding a mathematical thought in your head and really chewing and trying to work it out. And it's the same with the air, and it's best to work with that in a clear environment. And the next, which is a very exciting topic for me, is dairy and dairy products. And in the dairy products, we have milk, cheese, cottage cheese. There's different types of cheese, butters, and etc. The dairy products in very long time ago, there were in India teachers who were eating only milk. They were drinking only milk as a food substance and milk products, but mainly milk. And they were doing that because they were healers. They knew on an intuitive level that milk has a healing powers. And if a person is eating that substance all the time or mainly throughout the day and weeks and years, he gains that etheric power for healing. And those people were actually consuming, recycling that power. And when they were meeting people that needed help, they were giving away that etheric power, and their healing forces were actually happening, even with the conversation or laying their hands on the person's ailments on a specific part of the body, and he was giving off the etheric forces to them. I think that was happening in India, mostly because the Indian folk soul and physical body structure is related to developed when the etheric body of the human being was assembling itself on the earth. So that's why Indians are so flexible. Their physical body is very flexible, and their spiritual striving of their nature is their emotional impact is they're very flexible. They're not coming at you like some European could be, is with strong ego. So that's why still eating dairy products now is really influencing on the etheric body. When a mother is breastfeeding the child, she's actually giving him the closest to an etheric substance, which makes it quite important to be able to feed our children with breast milk. I know that nowadays that's We have some hardships with that. And a child after the age of 7, when he started changing his teeth, is supposed to start drinking milk. I mean, dairy from a cow or for a sheep, goat, anything. They should be starting to eat solid milk products like cheese and butter and etc.
So they're not good for spiritual development. So they're not bad, sorry, for spiritual.
Yes, they're fine to be used in eating. They are now some science says that the milk is a product from a connection with the blood system of a cow, and some people say vegans say that it's not good to eat milk because we are kind of not playing but using the cow and animals for our good, and they are not enjoying this process, or they are not supposed to be doing that. But spiritual science looks at it a bit differently. Rudolf Steiner mentions that cows were bred with time for human beings, but there were spiritual teachers like Zoroaster who actually found ways how to breed animals to their spiritual evolution. So a cow, a wild cow, which doesn't give a lot of milk and has big horns and a smaller body and very muscular, they needed these qualities of more of an astral energy to function in wildness. But when we took them under our when we started working with them, the people who started breathing, they looked at their spiritual values and they gave them they channeled their energy into something more productive. And actually in the past we were co-living. We were not using them, we were co-living. We were giving them what we could as a good food, good water source. They were part of the family affair.
Mm-hmm.
And that's much different when you have when you have a cow, dog, chickens, and you're a big system, a biological system and a family. And you are not just having hundreds of cows closed in a jail and using them with robots to take their milk. It was completely different. And nowadays there are still farmers who adore their animals and they name them and they know their names and they sing to them in Christmas time, especially in anthroposophical societies. And they have a relationship, a real relationship with the animal, and they don't use it for egoistic needs. So there is a different way of looking into that topic. And because I was vegan for 6 months, when I went into anthroposophy, I was so happy and maybe a little bit egoistic because I like butter. I like eating butter. But with time, I understood where that idea comes from. And also, Bein Saduno has a story with a student of his where she was a vegan in the 1930s. And he invited her. I think she was from a different city, and he invited her in Sofia on a dinner with him, only the two of them on a big table. And I don't know if that's a real story, but it sounds quite Bein Saduno's style. And he took a big piece of butter and said, "Help yourself." And there was only milk products and bread.
That's how you teach them a lesson, yeah.
And he said, "Help yourself." And he took a big piece of butter and slammed it on the bread. The piece was almost as big as the piece of bread, and started spreading it in eats. And she doesn't know what's happening, of course. And then he explains her, what you're doing is part of the future evolution of a human being, but our physical body is not yet ready to withhold from these substances. We still need them. And previously I mentioned the blood system of the animal. It's actually the milk product is of a completely different biological system of the animal. We are not taking anything from the animal. The animal is giving it as a gift.
So
This
it's
is
not like the low astral vibrations of meat when you kill an animal, it's suffering.
Yes.
Actually, etheric, which is, you say it's like a mother's gift. of
Yes.
unconditional love.
Yeah. And it's like a condensed light. That's why when you, I don't know how many people have drank raw milk from a good, well looked after cow, but it's really this purity and sweetness that it's there. It's like the vibrancy of the etheric coming, being given from the animal. So it's a really, really big thing. Not in the Bible, the milk is being mentioned many times, and now I'm going to make a relationship with the next slide, going to the honey.
Can I
So now,
ask you if dairy is good, but it's not if it's homogenized and all the etheric goodness is gone, isn't it?
yes,
So it needs to
yes,
be unpasteurized or unhomogenized, which is the correct one.
yes. It might be pasteurized, because pasteurized is just being warmed and boiled, but homogenized is a destruction of the cell membrane into many, 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 many tissues. And when you cultivate it to make yogurt, that's why it becomes even everywhere. And when you make sour yogurt, it has a little fat on the top, and it's a cream. That's how it should look, unhomogenized. So mostly of the yogurts that are made are homogenized, which is not good for you because it makes problems with the blood and blood clotting.
What about the milk, straight milk?
Straight milk, you mean raw?
Yeah, well, what's the difference between raw and pasteurized? So pasteurized is okay, you're saying, milk.
Yes, pasteurized is boiled.
Okay, but
Yes.
are normal milks homogenized or no?
The one that you buy from the shop, usually it says on the label. I found one in Bulgaria, only one that is not homogenized, and you can see the big cream on the top of the yogurt.
So
But
this
it's
is
not
the
many.
living one. That's the living one. Pasteurized, okay.
Yes, pasteurized with a good cultivation of sour yogurt. In the US, I don't think there's many unhomogenized, but there's many farms that sell raw milk in the US and in the UK. They have specific farms for raw milk. So yeah, in the raw milk you have a lot of etheric, but depending on how the milk is managed, you have to know your farmer and producer. Then you can make a choice of drinking raw milk. I've been doing it with the farmer in the UK who I knew, and he was treating the animals biodynamically. The next food source that I want to talk about is honey, and honey is pure bliss. It's if you treat the bees with respect, they will give you really a bliss in a spoon. Honey in anthroposophy is being used as a specific cure, where you warm a little bit milk to 40 degrees, you add honey and you stir it, and you help children who have any iron problems or look pale or weak or have any problems, because honey has all the elements within in a very, very small quantities, and have a structural force that the etheric forces from the milk and the structural forces from the honey are working in such a good symbiosis that they're bringing forces from the higher spiritual realms and the etheric realms together. And they've made some studies that children drinking that milk and children drinking just milk without honey are having big differences in healing of low iron levels, or just being softer and more tired, and any skin problems. So I just wanted to mention that because anyone can do that with children, just to practice it. It's a small amount, just every day or twice a day to do it. It's very tasty, and it's an easy, really easy way of helping our children. And for elderly people, honey is extremely important because it works on the eyes, bones, skin, nails, and the senses of sight, smell, and etc. because honey has this strong structural force of silica, which I'm going to talk later about. And it's really important to have at least 1 spoon, teaspoon, 1 teaspoon a day of honey. It could be in your drink or in purely just like that. But if it's not worked with more than 40 degrees, because all the enzymes are being blasted off if you do that. So honey is the astral body of the bees is more developed than the astral body of human beings. The food that bees eat is condensed sunlight because it's again from the bloom of flowers. They're taking the pollen and they're making honey out of it. And that's what they're eating. I mean, it's pure essence. So their physical body doesn't touch to anything lower than the bloom of a flower as food source besides water. And they look for very clear sources of water. So I think in Egypt, the honeybee is standing very highly in their understanding. And in India, it's the cow with the milk. So there is something quite important in the mixture of these two. Now, there is in the Bible, the honey and milk is going to flow. So those substances are mentioned because they are strength in them, and the combination of them is quite important for the development and the spiritual development of human beings. Because when you eat these substances that are quality made, you're connecting with higher understanding. And if you're combining them, you're showing the spiritual world, okay, I understand that there is something hidden there. I might not understand what it is, but I want to be part of it. And that's already putting you on a path to work with higher beings.
Wasn't it Rudolf Steiner or Vince Duno who said that bees are Venusian?
Yes.
He says they were a gift from Venus, whatever entities or system. And because they're so highly perfect and organized, there is such balance with the beehive mind as well. And so honey has very Venus energy to it. And in Vedic astrology, Venus is the planet that gives the life force and restoration and healing. Venus is the planet of healing. And people with strong Venus, they, for example, have ability to regenerate after surgery or illness much faster and to restore. Even if they get to the brink of death, they can get restored. Weak Venus, you can't, even wounds don't heal as well, and so on. Strong Venus in Vedic astrology, for example, exalted Venus in Pisces, it might have much better digestive system to extract the life essence of food than someone who has, say, Venus in Aries, or so they can eat more junk food, actually, people with strong Venus, because they can extract the life even out of kind of more processed food in some way, while other people have to be careful. I just wanted to bring this in. And another thing that you were saying, I've been reading a book of Daskalos. He's a high initiate who had an incarnation with Jesus, and he describes it in details, how they were living and how they were eating during the time of Jesus. And he says that Jesus doesn't drink milk and honey. That was his favorite food. So there you go.
Wow, that's very interesting. I'm even going to write that down so I can make a research after that.
Yes, the book is called Joshua Emmanuel. That was how it was sounded, the name of Jesus, Yeshua, Joshua Emmanuel from Daskalos. It's for free, actually. It's fascinating if you can read it. And he was the gentlest, the way he describes him, the gentlest, never raising a voice, always kissing. He was kissing people all the time on the eyes and caressing them, on the forehead and eyes and caressing them. He was very tactile, how he describes him. So, I don't know, maybe the milk. Of course.
Very interesting, yeah.
I'm shutting up now.
No, it's you made a connection here because in our language in Bulgaria, honey and copper have the same word. called Med. And Venus is really related to copper and to honey because of the honeybee being a Venusian insect. And also it might be interesting just to mention that Venus and Saturn have a very peculiar relationship. Saturn loves Venus, and Venus needs Saturn. They have astrologically they're quite well managed, and honeybees build hexagons as buildings, as building boxes, cases where they live and where they put the honey. And if we look at Saturn on the, I think it's the north side of Saturn, on the North Pole, we have a giant hexagon. And the hexagon is related to the warmth ether, let's say to warmth. And the honey also has this relationship to Saturn and to the warmth and structural development. So we can again see the relationship between the planetary and the physical manifestation of the planetary connections. Now I'm going to jump to how foods help or relate to our physical body. And as first, a plant has 4 parts mainly. Has a root, a leaf, a flower, and a seed. And the root, let's take carrot vegetables. The roots have a connection with the head and with the brain. So when we eat root vegetables, we're actually feeding substances for the head. And we are asking the body to develop forces that are related to the head. So by eating carrots, beetroots, radishes, turnips, and etc., we are giving substances and forces processes for the development of thinking. And it's quite important in early age, after the age of 1, when you start making purees for babies, to have boiled or baked root vegetables, so we can start feeding allowing the thinking and further future to be grounded, because there are other substances that impact on thinking, but then it's not a healthy relationship. And especially when children start going to school or to kindergarten, where they start thinking or trying to develop thinking forms, it's good to feed them that kind of foods, not daily, but to have them in our diet, of course, raw as well. And potatoes, unfortunately, are not part of that equation, because potatoes have a different relationship. They are not a root. They are kind of a yam, but not really a yam. They are a swollen side root. And yams, like sweet potatoes and other yams, are part of the root vegetable kingdom. But potatoes have an exception, which it's good to eat potatoes once a week, twice a week, but not a daily staple. And I know that many of Europeans food cultures have potatoes in many meals, but it kind of develops other issues for overeating potatoes, especially to the thinking. Then we have the leaf part of the plant. We take spinach. It works on the rhythmic realm and the heart. So when we eat leaves, they are part of the breathing system of the plant, and also they're the balancing equation of the heart. And that helps us develop breathing, and the greenness also of the leaves brings magnesium that works with the blood system and the blood flow and making it more dense, the blood, stronger. So it's important to have leaf vegetables in our diet, as cabbages, any lettuce, and salads, mixtures. There's many different. Kohlrabi is also part. Leeks are part of the leaf realm. So that's their relationship. If we have issues or starting to develop issues, maybe it's good to turn more on the leaf vegetables and just have them, to be mindful to have leaf vegetables in our staple. Another one, the next one is the flowers, which is hard to kind of find. Not many flowers. Actually, many flowers are we being able to eat, but we just don't know that, and our food shops usually do not have them because they're not being looked for. Nasturtiums, let's take, are very edible. Mostly of the roses are also edible. Many of the herbs that we have are edible. The dandelion and others are edible flowers that we can not only put as a tea, but actually in our salads. Cauliflower, broccoli to some extent, but mostly cauliflower are flower vegetables. That it's okay to have them in our diet. When we have teas, flower teas is also, we are putting them in our system in that way. I know many people try to burn essential oils in their room, but this is sometimes it's mostly from seeds, not from flowers. And the flowers work on our digestive system. And our digestive system is quite big. There's many organs that take part in the digestion. That's why when you take mint or chamomile, they are working on bloating or different digestive issues. So maybe you can find locally some flowers that are good that you can eat, and just make a research on edible flowers because they are raw, and most of the nutrients are within the flower and the seed of a plant. And again, you're working with Venus forces when you work or consume flowers in any way. And then we have fruits and seeds, because fruit, seeds, and nuts are the fruits of the tree or fruits of the plants. They worked on the sexual and reproductive organs and forces in our bodies. Only when we see let's say here we have a peach. When we see the peach, it's really appealing. It's really appealing. It's like the lips of a woman. If a man is looking at, they are just wanting you to have it. So they are kind of using subtle forces of. They're not sexual forces, but they are inviting you in for you to consume it. And also the muscle powers, where when we eat wheat, grain, or rice, it really goes into the muscle forces and kind of impacts on bringing the carbohydrates into the muscles. So that's where fruits, seeds, nuts, grains, and etc. are working on of the body. And this is how the 4 elements of the plants relate to the 4 elements of the human being. And every element, let's say the roots are the earth, the leaf is the water, the flower is the air, and then we have the fruit as the fire from an elemental point of view. There's something quite interesting that I stumbled on from Bein Saduno. When I was in England, I worked with people from Africa, Spain, everywhere. And some people traditionally ate with their hands a lot. And I was very curious because in Europe or in England, you have 7 knives, you have 5 spoons, you have 12 forks, 10 spoons, and 12 cups again, because you eat very finely and carefully every dish. And I was thinking, how is this the white person way of eating and traditional way of, like in Spain and some parts of Africa, where their spoon is their bread? And Ben Saduno mentions that in future it will be used, and it's good to eat with your bare hands, because the contact with the hand and with the food, we give off light streams from every finger, or from the middle part of the finger, actually. We give off a light energy. That's why also they put their hands when they're healed. And when we work with our hand and the food, we're eating out from that energy that's being released from our own and being contacted with the food. And then you get satisfied from the food with less, because it's a whole act. There's not something standing in between, like steel cutlery, or even any cutlery that's standing between you and the food, that making of that energetic contact. So that was very curious for me, because children usually they really try to eat with their hands mainly. They holding a cutlery is hard for them, which I'm not saying don't teach your children to eat with cutlery or don't do it. I'm just
Yes, there is actually a good thing to it. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe just don't put it on your shirt like the child on the left here. Something about habits of eating. This is again from Vince Saduno. He mentions that it's good to eat only when the sun is risen. And before sunrise, our digestive system and our biological processes, they are listening to the sun. Everything's connected. Our heart is directly connected with the sun. It's called the circadian rhythm. And our heart knows it, even if we are very isolated and we can break our rhythm. But anytime that we do something with the rhythm of the sun, our biological system recognizes it. So he told his students to eat after sunrise and before sunset, because there's organ like the liver and the gallbladder which reduce their work when the sun is not above the sun.
So people in the north know, like the winters, the Arctic winters, that the sun doesn't come up for 6 months. That's not really good, is it?
Yeah, I know. I think that, though, like we said, there's always exceptions, and this is a very big exception. Fasting for 6 months might be crucial.
And then eating for 6 months because
Yes, but if we take that example, we can use the eating habit to be when the sun is closest to the sunrise, because it actually goes quite far. It turns around and goes further and further. So no, I don't think that's applicable to people living in that kind of areas, of course. It's just to have I think people in normal countries can use that. I've used it for the after sunrise. It really helps on my sleep. And I can wake up much earlier because I've slept and my body is sleeping instead of digesting. Because when you eat something for 2 hours and a half, your body will be doing digestion work and spreading the food that you take. So you might eat at 9 o'clock and go to bed at 11, but there will be, because you will finish eating probably at 9:30, you would probably until 12, your body will not be purely sleeping. And there's 1 hour and a half that you would think I'm sleeping, and then you wake up at 6 and you said, oh, well, I have 6-7 hours, but you actually had 5.5.
that's a very good way to lose weight as well. If you don't eat after sunset.
Yeah. The fasting as a way of, dieting and habit of dieting is also fasting. Nowadays, there's quite a lot of different ways of fasting. There's 23-1, there's 16-8, 8-16, or etc., etc. Fasting is a good way of purifying old broken cells, diseased cells. The first thing that goes away and is being consumed and recycled from the body is the older cells and more diseased cells. So it's a good way of clearing etheric sluggishness, if we can call it. And that's when you fast and you drink water. Something that makes it 3 to 7 times faster is when you fast without any water. It's called a fire fast. I've done that for 24 hours. And it's when you walk through a place where there's high humidity, a person immediately starts drinking through the pores of his skin. And I was next to a river and I stand it for half an hour, and it's like I didn't fast for 8 hours, because you just take from the air the the water molecules, because your body becomes very sensitive. After you don't eat for 2 days or even for 1 day, you start smelling a lot of sense impressions of food, someone cooking. You're like, this is actually someone is frying onions with tomatoes, and you are very sensitive. This is a reason that fasts are used for spiritual practices. There's prayer fast, that for 1 day you don't eat anything, you don't drink anything, and you concentrate your mind to give for God or for the higher thoughts. All day you give yourself to a spiritual practice. It's not like you go and play tennis, or you sleep, or you do some work, or you do your homework. You can do it as really giving your thought and emotional feeling realm to higher thoughts, and that can bring development and bring some insights to certain topics that you need to invest or to find for yourself. Peter Dunhoff gives example that it's good to fast at least once a week for 24 hours or twice a month, again for 24 hours, a water fast. He gives it as just part of your diet. You just do it every month, and after 3 months you would not even notice it. And I know in astrology and in the Vedic astrology, there is Ekadashi days, which again, if I'm not mistaken, twice a month, which is the best day of the month to fast. Or it could be, yeah, Kadashi I think means 11, so it's twice a month. So that's also part of dieting. Now, if you diet 8-16, which is, let's say at 12 o'clock you eat your first meal, and until 8, from 12 to 8, you're allowed to eat. Anything else is 16 hours of a fast. That's also a good way of balancing hormones and allowing the body to, the digestive system, to take a break. I know people who are doing 23-1, which is eating only in one hour window, but I personally think that's very hard, because you're eating a lot of food for a very small amount of time, and then the digestions could go a bit crazy. But it's good for the digestive organs that food is being timed. Every day I eat lunch at 1 o'clock, and then at 8 o'clock I eat dinner. The digestive organs are very prepared for that. They get into the habit, because habits are related to the third body. And from here, I jump to a planetary weekly diet that one can use. In Waldorf schools, this is being practiced for the children. And all the grains are related to the days of the week, which it's Moon Day, the Mars Day, Mercury Day, Jupiter Day, Venus Day, Saturn Day, and then we have the Sunday, which is missing from my photo here. I'm sorry about that, from the picture. And every day of the week, from Monday to Friday, the children are eating the breakfast or the lunch with the grain of the day, which is related to the planet. And let's take, for an example, Mercury as Wednesday. Children would have millet porridge for breakfast or millet chips for lunch. And then we are allowing the child to live out through their diet, through their tasting, sometimes they even cook it together with the teacher. They are living off the archetype of the planet through the food in the specific day of the week. So that we are contacting astral and spiritual forces through their diet on an etheric level. And Waldorf schools go even further. They even use the colors of the day. So sometimes the teacher is dressed like that, or some parents are very interested and they dress their children in that. And again, you have the food and the color being influencing you on the specific day, which kind of amplifies it. And even they go further than that, and they take activities that Mercury, let's say Mercury is big in communication, and they have a game that's related to verbally related to a game. And if we make relationship to Tuesday, it's going to be a more physical game. So if we manage like that the days of the week for children, they really live out spiritual realities and they don't need to know why and how. And further future, when they become 30 or 28 in a cycle of years, of 7 years, they might start noticing that in daily life. They might start dressing like that subconsciously, or even doing, if I have a meeting with my boss, I would try to push it on Thursday. Or if I have a meeting with colleagues, it would be on Wednesday. If I want to train, I would do it on Tuesday and Saturday, probably best. Because the physical body opens cells, closes cells, the nervous system works more. It's related to the rhythm. The days of the week were given by initiates. I think they were named by initiates. They were not just by accident made in this way, and their names to come out like that. Even you can see in the graph, there is the chakras which work best at certain time, or mostly are concentrated. There are archangels which are related to these days. They are the organs. Anthroposophical medicine, when they give let's say a person has a problem with the liver, they give him a homeopathy to take at Thursday. Every Thursday you take your homeopathy. Or because Jupiter has a good relationship with Mercury, they give at Wednesday and Thursday you take your homeopathy at certain time of the day, because also the specific organs have best hours that they work at. And this is a very big spiritual scientific connections that you can have to actually understand what are best times for certain things. But it's quite a big thing. I went a bit crazy in the beginning of finding anthroposophy, because I would find astrology speaks that this planet is related to this organ. India talks about this. Egypt talks about that. And with spiritual science, I managed to kind of sieve out the concrete connections between planet and organ and food, because some of the connections that different practices and spiritual teachings, they connected them because of different reasons, and that were not applicable anymore for the days we live in now. So that's a broader picture. I was very excited, and I made a diet for my whole week, every meal to have at least one ingredient to be part of a relationship with the planet. And let's say coconut milk, and coconuts are related to the moon, and almonds are related to Venus. This was my personal findment. I don't say that it is like that. It was just my way of walking the path. So I would put myself every Friday to eat almonds and try to have a coconut milk rice on Mondays, because rice is also related to the moon.
What is this happening? So many people can't have grains. There is like a war against grains nowadays. Wheat in particular. What is, are we
Yeah.
so disconnected that our body can't?
I think, and one can really look, because some people don't even know how millet looks, or barley looks, or rye looks as a grain. And they would give that to the birds or to the horses more than they would consider it food. Wheat is the grain of the sun, and it's a superior grain. Even in the way it grows, it makes big root system. If you have an oat plant and a wheat plant, the wheat plant have a bigger root system than the oat. I think that's subconsciously, again, bringing Ahriman into the picture, or darker forces, if we want to call them. Wheat nowadays has been treated very badly, and it has been breeded out and used as hybrid and mixed with other plants, which are not supposed to be part of the wheat's generational path. And I think that happens because it's the sun wheat, and it's quite important to have wheat in our diet. And it's kind of suppressed by the darker forces, as bringing gluten into the picture. And a grain, on the picture on the left here, you can see a grain. and it has this white, this little parts on top, which are like needles. I am like whiskers. I'm missing the English term for them, which it's supposed to be in wheat. But nowadays, wheat doesn't have these. And this is the part of the silica process, which gives you, okay, so this plant has silica and accumulates silica very nicely. But when they took off that, they made wheat very short because wheat and other plants were quite longer. They made it short because of being able to combine it with the machines easier. They cut out the strong forces within wheat. And wheat is, Ben Sadono says, wheat should be chewed a lot because it releases forces, light forces that we after that consume. And it can be soaked, it can be boiled, and wheat should be eaten actually as a grain, not as a flour.
Not like on breads and stuff.
Yes, it's better to eat it as a rice and not as milled, because it denatures the etheric forces. And especially if the grain has been milled and stayed for more than 3 months, just etheric forces scramble, they disappear. And it's very hard. And nowadays, if you have, sometimes we eat flour on 2 years, three, and there's
Oh,
other
yeah.
extremes.
So you're saying that wheat, because it's connected to the sun, it's ruled by the sun, is the most noble, and probably because the sun is about vitality.
Yeah.
People who need more vitality should cook grains of wheat and chew them.
Yes. And also to note that these grains were not treated, because then you are boiling. Of course, things are going to stay in the water when you throw it away. But again, even Bein Saduno says for children, and I was amazed, for children above 6 months, it's good to drink boiled wheat water. So he puts it next to honey and milk. This wheat water it's very good because it has very dense nutrient qualities. And this we're talking about clean wheat. And here in Bulgaria, we grow a lot of einkorn, and the einkorn is an older wheat variety, a very, very old one. It's not even, you cannot even call it the wheat. So that's a way of having a good wheat, because nowadays they want gluten, they want shorter plant, they want it without these whiskers, and then you have a wheat variety which you actually don't want to consume. And you can consume spelt, emmer, einkorn. Those you can buy as grains and cook them. My son is 3 years and he chews on einkorn and he eats them for breakfast. Even without sweetener, he likes them a lot. And I was so pleased the first time I gave it to him, and I was chewing my nails. I was like, is he going to eat it? Is he not going to eat it? And I just put some grated peach with that and mix it, and he loved it. So they
Can you
are,
find that you grew yourself the einkorn as well and
yeah,
harvested
that,
it?
yeah. Well, yeah, I was able to grow this year, last year, 4 acres of einkorn, and having flour that was grinded just 2 weeks ago, and it was looked after for the last month. The flour is just completely different. So if you can find locally, that's a good way of managing your food. Just as fast as you can, bring it at your home from the garden or from the field. And it just wants a lot from people, need to put a lot of effort into that, but it really pays off. Honestly, it pays off because of your health of your family, because of the way of your thinking changes after a year of eating that kind of food, because of the gratitude of the connection with the farmer and the gardener, and you get into this cycle. Now I'm going to bring a thought which I didn't know 2 years ago, and it's about grape, and the grape as a spiritual path in the deep esoteric Christian tradition in the past. In the I forgot how they were called, but they were their teachers told them to eat nothing that comes from the grape. Juice, wine, the fruits, even when you made vinegar from grape, nothing that comes from the grape, because the grape has a specific relationship with the ego of the human being. So in the past, when Noah and the flood happened, Noah was able to get drunk for the first time. Fermentation happened on the earth, and then we needed alcohol, because alcohol has an ego force which we needed to bring down from the spiritual world. And when we drink alcohol, we had a lot of ego forces coming and assembling until we started making alcohol within our biological physical system. So nowadays we make homeopathical parts of alcohol because we have the ego. And when God, actually it was Christ speaking to Moses from the burning bush, he says, I am the I am, because the Christ is the ultimate ego of the universe. And when the Christ came, he allowed every human being to have an ego. So from there on, we do not need to consume alcohol to bring the ego forces. So for people taking an occult and spiritual path for self-development, this is the first thing that's they're asking to withhold is alcohol. But the deeper Christian tradition, they go even further, and they said we withhold anything that comes from the grape, because they knew that this force of the ego is coming even from the juice and from the fruit of the plant. So that was something very peculiar for me, because I've never heard it anywhere else besides from Rudolf Steiner, who was able from the Akashic records to really penetrate the memories of people from that time and to observe their conversations. So I'm just giving that as a peculiar fact, because I had the person in Bulgaria who asked me, can you tell me all the foods that I would stop eating to go on such a path? And then, because I had a few months going crazy trying to be super strict, but it's very impractical, and you really need to live in a close society to be able to manage that, and your diet has to be very strict, and you know how to cook and to eat and prepare and etc., and your timings. So in the way we live our life in modern society, it's not practical. It's just to be mindful sometimes of these things. Here I put potatoes just to mention that this is this element called benzodiazepine. Benzodiazepine. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it in English. I'm sorry about that. You can look it up. This element is actually used to make Valium and sleeping pills. So it puts our thinking to sleep, especially being eaten in big quantities. There was a child and a family coming through the Steiner and asking him that they have problems with studying and being able to stay awake at school. And he told them, before he even asked them, you need to lower his diet with potatoes, because that's making issues for him at school and at home. So potatoes and children, very careful. We try once a week, most. And I would say that it has a very big impact on the development of our child. But again, be mindful and use it as you wish. I'm just mentioning that. There is a root that Rudolf Steiner gives as a substitute. It's a Chinese yam. They call it Lichtroot in Germany. It's Diosio de Batatas. I think it's a Latin name. And you can see it from the photo here. It looks like a lightning bolt. It's gorgeous. And you can eat it raw, you can eat baked. It doesn't have any specific taste. Some people take it as herb because they dry them and they just put it in the salad. But when they asked what is the plant that we can grow as potatoes and have a spiritual development, to bring spiritual development in the European continent, and he said, he talked about this plant, and it has a specific way of being grown to take the most of the light ether, so bringing thoughts and bringing, you know, real way of thinking. And he gave that root, which relates to the grains, because grains have that power if they're eaten as a grain and they're being chewed a lot to release that power. So that's why I'm very big on the grains and recommending it to people and to children, because actually a child can eat most of the grains besides rye, even if they're made on flake, if they're rolled, and you allow the child just every day of the week to eat different meal and to be in boiled or cooked, and to bring that forces to the child, because I personally cannot, we don't have a way of bringing that food into our diet, the light root. This year, for the first time, I grew 3 roots, and it's quite specific, and we will have probably for 2 meals. And I think in places as America and UK and some other parts of Europe, you can buy them and you can order them, and you just put it in your salad, and once a week if you can, or once a month, just have it there. It really makes a difference to your way of living. Yeah. Then this is from the part is no. These are the foods as no. Anything that contains stimulants as coffee, black tea, green tea, white tea, yerba mate, matcha, they have caffeine in them. And Rudolf Steiner, he gives 3 things that are bringing hardships into spiritual development. The first is alcohol, the second one is meat, and the third one is caffeine. And cacao and chocolate is also within that sector, because it has traces of caffeine. He stresses a lot on alcohol and on meat. As an alcohol student, you should withstand alcohol and meat. He just mentions the forces of caffeine, but he doesn't put them as a no if you're on that path, but he puts it quite highly in the first 3, because that's a stimulant that stops you from developing your forces. And I just wanted to mention some drinks and foods which have that, but they're being hidden as good and healthy, because matcha has a lot of nutrients within, which are actually good. Yerba mate also has a lot of nutrients, which are good for the body, but the caffeine kind of suppresses that effect. I mean, it's for a person who's going on the health path, there's a lot of nutritionists and people who do training or sports which do use this as forces because they're doing sports and that's their path, so they might need these. But if you're on a different path and you're trying more of a indoor development of your personal forces, you need to bring these forces out from you, which these substances give you. So this is just a side note. Now we have, again, speaking about forces related to water, and this is my almost to the last slide. Nowadays we see cold showers being called as healthy, and because they bring your body to a certain way of functioning, to lose fat and to become stronger. Then you put again hot water, cold water, hot water, cold water, and then your body becomes very endurant and your blood system starts working more, and etc. etc. Actually, Ben Saduno says that cold showers, and he said that 100 years ago, where cold showers were not even thought out in our modern society. He said cold showers are a no-no. A
Oh,
warm,
really?
yeah,
Why?
because you bring your body into stress, and if a person very slightly can observe what happens in his mouth when a very cold stream of water hits him. When I was in England and I worked on a biodynamical farm, and when we were watering the garden with the hose, sometimes I was topless because it was very hot. And when I went through the hose and it showered me, and I was getting a very strange taste in my mouth. And I was thinking for 2 seconds, and I had no ideas for 2 years what was happening until one day it happened to me when I was in a city environment. And I was talking with a friend, and it started raining. And because I don't feel rain, we just walked in the rain. But this happened to me again. And we started talking. And it becomes because when the body is stressed, it becomes acidic. Because it stresses, it closes the cells, and it acidifies. And a healthy body is between acidic and an alkaline. It's a slightly alkaline, the body, or different parts of the body, because the mouth is mostly acidic. And my saliva, when rain hit or cold water hits me, it was acidifying very fast because it was stressing. So the microbiology of my body was so shocked, and it was acidifying my body. That's why when we are under stress, we become acidic. And there's even ways of saying, oh, you're very acidic. In Germany, they call Kiesel, Ticino Kiesel, because you're not in a good mood, you're acidic, and you're acidic to the environment. So you're acidifying your body cells for a moment, and then a hot shower, then you're acidifying it again, and you're playing with forces that you don't understand, that you're closing actually your cells, and that's disallowing you to relax into an open way of thinking, because you're closing. And when you're doing it twice a week, and these effects are staying longer, if you cannot release that acid or stress by meditation or prayer or by your own will, this is gaining on you, and that's why it's not good. Also, drinking cold drinks, which is I think it's a habitual thing in the States, especially in the summer. Ben Saduna also says warm water, 2-3 cups a day, warm water. It kind of takes all the gunk from your all your where sorry, I'm forgetting terms. When you drink water and it goes to your stomach, when it's warm, the water, it clears your organ and your throat and the pipes that the water is going through. And this gunk is usually filled with bad bacteria. And when you flush it off, your bad mood goes away. It's like an etheric flush with warm water. And it kind of clears, it makes your pores open. It kind of brings also release of water through the pores. You start sweating and you're clearing. Your lymphatic system starts working. And when you're drinking cold drinks, it kind of becomes exactly the opposite. You're giving food for the bad microbiology, you're closing the cells, you're excreting more energy so you can warm the water in your belly, and etc. and etc. and etc.
No, it
So
makes so much sense because when I used to have problems with my nervous system, like anxiety and panic attacks, warm showers would help. That's what would calm down the nervous system straight away.
yeah, that's why teas work in such way, because they are, besides the herbs, they are just warm water that we drink.
Amazing.
And my last slide would be about, it's mostly a recommendation, homeopathy, because nowadays our thinking, we are overthinking. The humanity now is overthinking because we just need it. In daily life, we have to think, manage, plan, and etc. But we are not eating foods which are allowing our thinking to be on a level. and then we extract elements from the bones and from the organs to push them for the brain to be able to do the processes that we ask him to do. That's why relaxing and breathing deeply and allowing yourself not to think for a few minutes it's a health advice. And to manage the forces of thinking, these two on the right and on the left, the blue bottles with phosphorus and silica. These are elements which work for kindling the thinking of the human. So it's good to think homeopathy of these two elements in 30C, because the potency 30 or between 20 and 30 are the ones that work on the brain. And if you take phosphorus 6C, you're not going to work on the brain directly. You're going to work on the limbs. So that's why I've given these numbers. If you're a person who works on the computer, or you talk with a lot of people, or you need to think a lot, it's good to take these supplements at least once a day. 2, 3 ampoules, 5, not more than 5. But yeah, and I think in the US and the UK you can easily find these. And the firm, which is iron in the middle, is again an element which, because of walking with shoes or not getting enough sunlight or not being enough in the mountains and having bad oxygen and air in the city, it's good to have meteoric iron or any kind of iron as a homeopathy, just to give this energy of the will, which we're missing. We're overthinking, and the thinking kind of stops the will of acting. And this is related to the blood. And will is as important as thinking, because the will kind of allows thinking to appear. The practice comes before theory. So this is something that almost for anybody could work well as a homeopathic supplement.
It's interesting because in Vedic astrology, Mercury, planet of thinking, is the biggest enemy of Mars, the planet of willpower. So yeah, that's people who overthink, they don't act, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you need maybe some iron, like you said, supplement. And I was reading silica. Didn't Rudolf Steiner said that the human of the future of the six-root race will be silica-based, will transition more from carbon to silica? Can you tell us a little bit more as closing words?
Oh, this is so exciting. I'm getting the goosebumps. So there are a few things from that line. There's Rudolf Steiner gives a silica preparation, a spray for plants hundreds years ago. And it's one of the most important sprays because he knew that plants are not using silica. And he's putting into the future for people, for the soil, for the plant, to start using silica as a food, because he knows that the body is changing. So when the Kali Yuga finished, and now we're in the different Yuga entering slowly, the carbon-based human being has vanished. He is slowly degrading. So our biology, our physical chemical biology is now changing a lot. The human being is going to become more pale. He's going to be more white. He's not going to be as his blood is going to be a little bit paler. The iron levels are going to change. This is also Slava Sevrukova talks about that, and she really describes how people will look. Their bodies will be longer. And actually it's strange because the white person will not be as much. It will be more of a brownish thing, but not a dark brown. And more people would be with dark hair and dark eyes instead of the blue-eyed and blonde. So yes, he gives that preparation and anthroposophical remedies as silica, because he knew that we should start putting basic ways of managing silica in our daily life and having a relationship, because silica is an element related to Aries also,
What?
and to the sun. Silica, there is 12 chemical elements that are related to the 12 signs, and silica is related to Aries.
Oh,
And Aries, because you're thinking in the middle and here, and that's why actually Aries could think and they manage. They need silica. It's also I think there was a story where the sword of Michael is welded by meteoric iron and silica
yes.
because of the light that streams, the beam of light. And the nervous system, now if you look Silicon Valley, they're making the little chips by silicon, and that's why they connect them, and that's how energy flows faster. It actually flows.
Yeah.
The nervous system needs silicon to flow the vibrations and the thoughts that are being accumulated or being brought, to be able to have a healthy work, to flow the vibrations on the nervous system. So it's very good for the nerves to have silica, but not just eating pure silica, to have it transformed through plants first or taken homeopathically. And that's why people started finding silica-based organisms in the deep depths of the oceans. I don't know if you heard about that. They found beings and fishes and different kinds of beings based on silica, not on carbon.
So it's possible to have life form silica based.
Yeah.
So you think we can eat silica, because silica is like in diatomaceous earth and bentonite and so on. You know.
I think yes, it mostly when it's in that form. I'm not sure about the diatomaceous earth because it's a plant. It's already biological.
It's
But
the exoskeletons of
yes,
tiny ones.
yes. And in bentonite, it's a stone, it's a rock. It goes through your system, it goes into the digestive system, it takes out all the bad metals and chemicals, and it flushes them together. It doesn't actually get absorbed by the body.
So the silica, the best way to take more silica is either through homeopathy or through vegetables.
Yes, plants. One tea that it's easy to make, it's horsetail. That's a herb. You take horsetail and you boil it for 10-15 minutes, and then you leave it for 10 hours. And it extracts in the water. It's going to become green, and then you drink that.
Your family must be eating so healthy. You must be cooking for them the best food, or the healthiest at least.
Well, we try.
Thank you so much, Theo. Again, you blew our minds with your knowledge. We can't wait again to hear your next topic. And if anyone wants to connect with Theo, he is a wellspring of knowledge and spiritual advice as well. Again, I'm putting a link below. And if you want to learn with Theo, who has lessons, classes on the foundations of esoteric science, of anthroposophy, where he shares a lot of his knowledge, is 30% off for just our viewers now. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Theo.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.